The space station called Sanctuary 7 floated quietly in the darkness between stars. It was a place where many different alien species worked together, learning about each other and sharing knowledge. The station was huge, with different sections built for different types of aliens who needed different things to survive. Commander Velthar walked through the main hallway, his four arms holding a data tablet. He was a Zenthi, a species with silver skin and 3 hearts that beat at different speeds depending on his mood. Right now, all 3 hearts were beating faster than normal because he was worried about today's training exercise. Today was the first time the humans would join the emergency survival drill. Velthar had read the reports about humans and their home planet Earth. The reports made him nervous. Earth was rated as a Class 12 death world, the highest danger rating that existed. Most planets in the galaxy were safe and stable. Earth was neither of those things. He entered the main meeting room where all the crew members were gathering. The Krell were already there, standing in neat rows. They looked like giant insects with hard shells and many legs. They took training very seriously because their species had lost people in real emergencies before. The Phobians arrived next, moving slowly in their special suits. They were like living jelly and needed careful temperature control to stay healthy. They positioned themselves near the heating units in the room. Then the humans walked in, and Velthar felt his primary heart skip a beat. There were 12 of them, and they were talking and laughing with each other like this was a casual social gathering instead of important safety training. Lieutenant Jake Morrison was a tall man with short brown hair. He stood next to Nurse Amy Parker, a woman with red hair tied back in a simple style. They were discussing something about a game called basketball and seemed completely uninterested in the safety briefing that was about to begin. Velthar clicked his mandibles together, and his translator device changed the sound into words everyone could understand. Please, everyone, pay attention. Today's drill is very important. We will practice what to do when life support systems fail. The Krell stopped moving and focused all their attention on him. The Phobians rippled inside their suits, showing they were listening. The humans looked up but continued to stand in relaxed poses that made Velthar uncomfortable. During this drill, Velthar continued, we will reduce the oxygen in the air. We will make the temperature very cold. We will simulate breaks in the hull where air escapes into space. Your job is simple. When the alarm sounds, go directly to your emergency shelter and wait there until the drill ends. One of the Krell leaders, Jixtal, clicked his approval. My people understand the seriousness of such training. We have practiced this many times. We will not fail. Jake raised his hand like a student in school. Commander, quick question. How much are you reducing the oxygen? Velthar looked at his tablet. We will reduce oxygen by 15% below normal levels. Amy leaned close to Jake and whispered something. Jake smiled but tried to hide it. Velthar's translator picked up the whisper. She had said, "That's like being in Denver." He did not understand what Denver was, but the casual tone worried him. The temperature will drop to 4 degrees Celsius, Velthar added, watching for reactions. This is nearly freezing and very dangerous. A human engineer named Pete Collins made a strange sound, like a laugh mixed with a cough. He was a short, strong man with a thick beard. Several other humans smiled. Velthar's confusion grew. Is something funny about freezing temperatures? Velthar asked, unable to hide his concern. No, sir, Pete said quickly. Just clearing my throat. We understand. But Velthar did not think they understood at all. He continued with his briefing, explaining where each species should go when the alarm sounded. He showed maps of the station and marked all the emergency shelters in bright yellow. He explained that the drill would last for 2 hours and that everyone must stay in their shelters for the entire time. The Krell asked several detailed questions about the procedure. The Phobians wanted to confirm that their environmental suits would protect them. The humans asked nothing else. They just stood there looking relaxed and unconcerned. After the briefing ended, Velthar watched everyone leave. The other species went to check their emergency equipment and review the shelter locations. The humans went to the cafeteria to get coffee. Velthar decided to review the human personnel files again. He sat in his office and read through the information about each human crew member. Jake Morrison came from a place called California. The file said he had experience in something called mountain climbing and ocean diving. These seemed like recreational activities, but the descriptions made them sound extremely dangerous. Amy Parker grew up in a place called Alaska, where the average temperature was well below freezing for much of the year. The file noted this casually, as if it were normal for children to live in such conditions. Pete Collins was from Colorado, which was apparently 2,000 meters above sea level. The oxygen at that height was naturally reduced. He had lived his entire life breathing less oxygen than most species needed to survive. Every human file contained similar information. They came from places with extreme heat or extreme cold. They lived at heights where the air was thin or in areas where dangerous storms were common. Many of them did dangerous activities for fun, like jumping out of aircraft or racing vehicles at high speeds. Velthar felt his secondary heart begin to race. These were not normal beings. They had evolved on a planet that seemed designed to kill them, and they had responded by treating danger as entertainment. He made a decision. He would monitor the human sections of the station extra carefully during the drill. If the reports about Earth were true, the humans might do something unexpected. He needed to be ready. 1 hour before the drill, Velthar did a final check of all systems. The oxygen reducers were working properly. The cooling systems were ready to lower the temperature. The simulated hull breach alarms were tested and functional. Everything was ready. He contacted his second-in-command, a Zenthi named Korval. "Are all personnel aware of the drill starting time?" "Yes, Commander. All species have confirmed they are ready. The Krell are already near their shelters. The Phobians have checked their suits 3 times. The humans are—" Korval paused. "The humans are what?" Velthar asked. The alarm began exactly at 0900 hours. The sound was loud and sharp, designed to cut through any background noise and get immediate attention. Red lights started flashing in every hallway and room throughout Sanctuary 7. The automated computer voice spoke in all languages at once, thanks to the translation system. "Emergency drill initiated. Life support systems compromised. All personnel must proceed to designated emergency shelters immediately." In the Zenthi quarters, Velthar watched his people respond perfectly. They moved in organized groups toward their shelters. Each one wore a breathing mask. Each one carried their emergency supply pack. They moved quickly but without panic, just as they had been trained. Velthar felt proud of his species. He switched the camera view to the Krell section. The insect-like beings were scuttling through their corridors in neat formations. Their hard shells clicked against each other as they moved, but they maintained order. They disappeared into their designated shelter within 90 seconds of the alarm. Excellent response time. The Phobian section showed similar success. The gelatinous beings oozed along in their environmental suits, moving toward their specially temperature-controlled shelter. They were slower than the other species, but they were following protocol perfectly. Velthar felt his heart begin to calm. Perhaps this drill would go smoothly after all. Then he switched the camera to the human section. His primary heart stopped for a full second. Jake Morrison was running. But he was not running toward the emergency shelter. He was running toward the engineering bay, which was in the opposite direction. Worse, much worse, he had taken off his emergency breathing mask. He was holding it in one hand while talking into his communicator with the other. "Amy? Are you seeing these temperature readings?" Jake's voice came through the station's communication system. The cooling system is dropping the temp too fast. This could actually hurt some of the crew. Amy's voice responded immediately. I see it. I'm checking on the Phobians now. Their section is getting really cold. Pete, can you do something about the environmental controls? Already heading there. Pete's voice joined the conversation. Velthar activated the station-wide communication channel. His voice came out higher than he intended, all three of his hearts now racing. Human personnel, this is Commander Velthar. You must proceed to your emergency shelters right now. This is not a suggestion. This is protocol. You are required to follow protocol. Copy that, Commander, Jake said, his voice cheerful and calm. We will. Right after we make sure nobody gets hurt. Some of the environmental systems are overdoing it. The drill is designed to test survival instincts, Velthar said, trying to keep his voice steady. Your survival instincts should tell you to seek shelter. Our survival instincts are telling us to fix the problem, Jake replied. He had reached the engineering bay now and was checking the control panels. Velthar switched cameras to the medical bay. Amy Parker was not in her shelter. She was at her workstation, looking at medical monitoring screens that showed the vital signs of crew members throughout the station. As Velthar watched, she grabbed several portable oxygen units and left the medical bay. Amy Parker, return to your shelter immediately, Velthar commanded. In a minute, Commander. 3 of the Zenthi crew are showing signs of oxygen deprivation. I'm bringing them supplemental oxygen units. They have oxygen masks, Velthar protested. Not all of them, Amy said. Looks like 2 crew members were in the shower when the alarm hit. Their masks are in their quarters. She was right. Velthar checked the medical monitors. 2 of his own people were struggling. How had the human noticed this before he had? And more importantly, why was she helping them instead of protecting herself? Another camera showed Pete Collins crawling into a maintenance shaft. These shafts were narrow tunnels filled with pipes and wires. They were considered extremely dangerous during any kind of emergency because they had no safety features and no emergency exits. Pete Collins, exit that maintenance shaft at once, Velthar ordered. Almost got it, Commander. Pete's voice came back, slightly muffled. The temperature controls are stuck. Someone set them too aggressive for the drill. Just need to manually adjust this valve. A different camera showed Corporal Lisa Grant walking calmly through a corridor that had been marked as a simulated hull breach zone. Warning signs flashed on the walls. The computer voice kept repeating that the area was dangerous. Lisa ignored all of it. She was not even wearing her thermal protection suit, despite the temperature in that section reading 3 degrees Celsius. Lisa Grant, that area is restricted during the drill, Velthar said, his voice taking on a desperate edge now. I know, Commander, but I found 2 Krell who got separated from their group. They're scared and they don't know which way to go. I'm taking them to their shelter now. Velthar pulled up the location data. She was right. 2 young Krell were huddled in a corner, clearly confused and frightened. But Lisa should not be there. She should be in her shelter. That was the rule. Another human, Technician Ben Wright, had gone to the power regulation room. This room was supposed to be sealed during emergencies because the radiation levels could rise. Ben was inside anyway, adjusting controls to prevent what he called a cascade failure in the power grid. Ensign Kate Sanders appeared on another camera. She was in a junction corridor, calmly directing a group of newly arrived Krell delegates who did not know where their shelter was located. She was drawing them a map on her data tablet and speaking in slow, clear words to make sure they understood. Specialist Chris Hughes was perhaps the most shocking. He had actually put on a work suit and gone outside the station, outside, into space. He was checking the external sensors that were giving false breach readings, trying to determine if they were actually false or if there was a real problem. Velthar stared at his screens in complete disbelief. Not a single human had gone to their designated shelter. Not one. They were scattered all over the station, fixing things, helping other species, completely ignoring every safety rule that existed. He checked the medical monitors for the humans. This was what truly confused him. Despite the reduced oxygen, despite the cold temperatures, despite working in dangerous areas, all human vital signs were normal. Their oxygen saturation levels were fine. Their body temperatures were stable. Their heart rates were elevated from physical activity, but not from distress. They were functioning perfectly in an environment that had his own people gasping for air, even with breathing masks. A message came through from the Krell shelter. Commander Velthar, we wish to report that human Lisa Grant safely delivered our 2 lost crew members. She refused to stay in our shelter for safety. She said she needed to check on others. Another message, this time from the Phobian section. Commander, human Amy Parker brought oxygen units to several crew members who needed them. We are grateful, but concerned for her safety. More reports came in. Every human was helping someone. Every human was solving some problem, and every human was violating every single safety protocol. Velthar made a decision. He had to end this drill before something actually went wrong. He reached for the emergency termination control, something that was only supposed to be used in real emergencies, not during drills. All personnel, this is Commander Velthar. The drill is terminated early. All systems returning to normal. All personnel may return to regular duties. The red light stopped flashing. The alarm went silent. The temperature began to rise back to normal levels. The oxygen mixture returned to standard. The conference room was silent except for the soft humming sound that the translation devices made when they were active. Commander Velthar stood at the head of the long table. His 4 arms were crossed over his chest, a gesture that meant serious displeasure in Zenthi body language. Most species in the galaxy understood this pose meant trouble. Sitting in front of him were the 12 human crew members. They sat in various relaxed positions. Some leaned back in their chairs. Some had their arms crossed. A few were looking around the room with mild curiosity. None of them looked worried or concerned. This made Velthar's frustration grow even stronger. Do you understand what happened today? Velthar asked, speaking slowly and clearly. Do you understand that you all failed the drill? Jake Morrison tilted his head slightly like he was thinking about a puzzle. With respect, Commander, I think we need to talk about what failure means here. Velthar felt his secondary heart start beating faster. Failure means ignoring direct orders. Failure means not going to your assigned shelter locations. Failure means taking off your safety equipment in dangerous conditions. Failure means putting yourselves at risk. But we saved those 2 Krell who were lost, Lisa Grant said. She spoke in a matter-of-fact tone, like she was pointing out something obvious. That was not your job during the drill, Velthar replied. So we should have just left them there? Amy Parker asked. Her face showed genuine confusion. They were scared. They didn't know where to go. Velthar's translator device made a buzzing sound as it struggled to convert his frustrated clicking into words. He took a moment to calm himself, then activated a holographic display above the table. It showed a 3-dimensional map of the entire station. Let me explain this very clearly, Velthar said, pointing at different areas of the map. During a real emergency, your actions today would have killed you, all of you. The oxygen levels were too low for human survival. The temperatures were extreme. The areas marked as hull breaches would have been exposed to vacuum. You would have died. Pete Collins scratched his beard. He looked thoughtful. About the oxygen thing, Commander. 15% reduction really isn't that serious. That's like being at maybe 8,000 or 9,000 feet altitude. Some of us grew up at higher elevations than that. Velthar had to check the conversion in his head. 8,000 feet. That is more than 2,000 meters above sea level. He stared at Pete. Your species lives at such heights? Sure, Ben Wright said. I'm from Colorado. I grew up at about 6,000 feet. That was normal. My hometown was in the mountains. Lots of people live there. I'm from Alaska, Kate Sanders added. And about the temperature, Commander, 4 degrees Celsius is not that cold. That's like spring weather where I come from. We go outside in short sleeves when it's that warm. Velthar felt dizzy. His tertiary heart began palpitating. You consider 4 degrees Celsius warm? You expose yourselves to such temperatures voluntarily? Well, yeah, Kate said. In winter it gets way colder, like -20 or -30 Celsius. 4 degrees is nice. -30, Velthar repeated. He could barely comprehend it. Water froze at 0 degrees. -30 was far below freezing. And you survive this? We don't just survive it, Chris Hughes said with a smile. We have winter sports, skiing, ice skating, snowboarding. It's fun. Velthar had to sit down. His legs felt weak. He pulled up another display, this one showing medical data from the drill. Look at this. When Technician Wright was in the maintenance shaft, the temperature in that location reached -2 degrees Celsius. He was wearing only his standard uniform. No thermal protection. According to our medical database, this should have caused rapid hypothermia and death within 30 minutes. Chris shrugged. I've worked in colder weather. Last winter, my dad and I were fixing the roof of our house. It was like -15 Celsius. We were up there for 4 hours. You just keep moving and you stay warm. Velthar stared at Chris. You were on a roof, in -15-degree weather, for 4 hours, and you did not die. No, sir. We finished the roof. It looks great now. Jake decided to try to help Commander Velthar understand. Commander, I think the problem here is that you're looking at Earth's environment from a Zenthi perspective. But Earth is really different from most planets. We have huge variations in climate and weather. Humans live everywhere from the equator, where it's really hot, to the Arctic, where it's really cold. We live at sea level and we live on mountains. We live in wet jungles and dry deserts. We're kind of built to handle a lot of different conditions. Your planet varies so much? Velthar asked. He was starting to understand something troubling. Most habitable planets maintain stable conditions. My homeworld has temperature variations of perhaps 10 degrees throughout the entire year. That is normal. That is safe. Earth's not like that, Amy explained. In some places, the temperature can change by 30 or 40 degrees between day and night. Between summer and winter, it can change by 60 degrees or more. Velthar accessed the database and looked up Earth's environmental data. The information confirmed what the humans were saying, but seeing the numbers made it worse. Earth had deserts where the temperature exceeded 50 degrees Celsius. It had polar regions where the temperature dropped below -50 degrees. It had mountains where the air was so thin that most species would lose consciousness. It had deep oceans with crushing pressure. It had storms that could destroy buildings. And humans lived in all of these places. Your planet is trying to kill you, Velthar said quietly. I mean, kind of, Pete admitted. But we've adapted. That's what humans do. We adapt. Velthar pulled up more data, this time looking at human physiology. He was beginning to see patterns he had not noticed before. Human hemoglobin, the molecule that carried oxygen in their blood, was incredibly efficient. They could function with oxygen levels that would make other species pass out. Their bodies had multiple systems for regulating temperature. They could sweat to cool down and shiver to warm up. Their metabolism could adjust to different conditions. Let me see if I understand correctly, Velthar said slowly. The conditions we created for the drill today, which represent catastrophic life support failure for this station and would be deadly emergencies for most species, would be considered normal weather on Earth? The 12 humans looked at each other. Several shrugged. Jake spoke for the group. More or less, yeah. I mean, it wasn't comfortable, but it wasn't dangerous either. Velthar stood up and paced back and forth, his forearms moving in agitation. This changes everything. The Galactic Union has safety standards based on the needs of typical species. But humans are not typical. You come from a Class 12 death world. We thought this meant your planet had dangerous predators or frequent natural disasters. We did not realize it meant your normal, everyday environment would be classified as an emergency situation on most other worlds. Is that a problem? Amy asked. Yes. No. I do not know, Velthar admitted. He felt overwhelmed. How can we maintain safety protocols when you do not recognize danger until it far exceeds what would kill most of the crew? How can we trust you to follow emergency procedures when your instincts tell you to help others instead of protecting yourselves? Are those bad instincts? Lisa asked quietly. Velthar stopped pacing. He looked at her. What do you mean? You said our instincts tell us to help others? You said it like it's wrong, but during the drill, nobody got hurt. The 2 Krell who were lost got to safety. The Zenthi crew who couldn't reach their oxygen masks got help. The environmental systems that were malfunctioning got fixed. Everyone was safe because we helped. Is that really failure? Velthar sat down again. He was quiet for a long time, thinking about what Lisa had said. Finally, he spoke. No, it is not failure in terms of the outcome. Everyone was safe. But it is failure in terms of following the rules. And rules exist for a reason. Commander Velthar spent 3 days working on his report. What started as a simple document about a failed training drill grew into something much bigger. It became a detailed study of human abilities and how different they were from every other known species in the galaxy. He worked long hours, barely sleeping. His quarters were filled with data displays showing charts, graphs, and comparison tables. He reviewed recordings from the drill over and over. He studied Earth's environmental data. He read human history files. The more he learned, the more concerned he became. On the 3rd day, he finished the report. It was 73 pages long. He read through it one final time before sending it to the Galactic Safety Commission. The report's introduction explained what had happened during the drill. It described how every human crew member had violated protocol, but then it went deeper, asking why they had behaved that way and what it meant for future operations. The first major section of the report focused on human physical capabilities. Velthar had compared human tolerances to the standard ranges for galactic species. The results were shocking. Oxygen requirements were the first area he examined. Most species needed oxygen levels between 18 and 22% of atmosphere. Below 18%, most beings would experience hypoxia, which meant their brains were not getting enough oxygen. They would become confused, weak, and eventually unconscious. Humans were different. They could function normally at oxygen levels as low as 15%. Some humans who lived at high altitudes were adapted to even lower levels. Their blood carried oxygen so efficiently that they could remain active and alert in conditions that would make other species pass out. Temperature tolerance was even more extreme. The Galactic Safety Commission had established that most species needed environmental temperatures between 18 and 28 degrees Celsius. Outside this range, most beings needed protective equipment or they would suffer injury or death. Humans had a functional range from approximately negative 20 degrees to positive 40 degrees Celsius, and this was their comfortable range. They could survive, with proper clothing, at temperatures from negative 40 to positive 50 degrees. This range was 5 times larger than what most species could endure. Velthar included a section about pressure tolerance, too. He had discovered that humans could adapt to air pressure changes that would burst the eardrums of many species. They could descend deep underwater or climb high mountains. Their bodies adjusted in ways that seemed almost impossible, but the physical data was not what worried Velthar most. It was the psychological profile that truly concerned him. He had created a section in his report called Inverse Threat Response. This described the pattern he had observed during the drill and in human behavior throughout history. When faced with danger, most species focused on self-preservation first. This was logical. This was how survival worked. You saved yourself, then you could help others if possible. Humans did not follow this pattern. When humans perceived danger, their immediate response was often to protect others, especially those they saw as vulnerable or in need. This was not just trained behavior in soldiers or emergency workers. This pattern appeared throughout human society and throughout human history. Velthar had found records of humans running into burning buildings to save others. Records of humans diving into dangerous water to rescue drowning people. Records of humans shielding others with their own bodies during attacks or disasters. This self-sacrificing behavior was so common that humans considered it normal, even expected. The report included a theory about why humans behaved this way. Earth was not just dangerous because of its environment. It was dangerous because the environment changed rapidly and unpredictably. Humans survived not by being the strongest or fastest, but by working together. They developed strong social bonds and protective instincts. Helping each other was literally how they survived as a species. Another section discussed what Velthar called the recreation paradox. He had discovered that humans did dangerous things for fun. They called these activities sports or adventures or hobbies. They would jump from aircraft with only a cloth parachute to slow their fall. They called this skydiving. They would climb up sheer rock faces with minimal equipment. They called this rock climbing. They would descend deep into caves or underwater with limited air supplies. They would race vehicles at high speeds. They would ski down steep mountains. They would surf on large ocean waves. All of these activities carried significant risk of injury or death. Yet humans did them voluntarily. They paid money to do them. They traveled to special locations to do them. When Velthar tried to understand why, the answer was always the same. It's exciting, it's fun, it's challenging. Humans seem to need a certain level of danger or difficulty in their lives. If their environment was too safe, too stable, they created artificial challenges. This was completely alien to most galactic species, who valued safety and stability above almost everything else. The final section of the report was titled Implications for Multi-Species Operations. This was where Velthar made his recommendations. He acknowledged that the current safety protocols were not working for human crew members. Humans could operate safely in conditions that other species could not. Humans also had instincts that made them help others even when it violated self-preservation protocols. The Galactic Union had two choices, Velthar wrote. They could refuse to allow humans on multi-species crews, keeping them separate to avoid protocol conflicts, or they could adapt the protocols to account for human capabilities. Velthar recommended the second option. He proposed creating what he called flexible response protocols. These would maintain standard safety rules for most species, but would add special emergency procedures that utilized human abilities. During emergencies, humans would be authorized to operate in conditions that other species could not. They would be designated as emergency responders, using their environmental tolerance and protective instincts to help crew members who needed assistance. Velthar added one more thing to his report. He included data from stations and ships that already had human crew members. He had requested this information from other commanders, and the results supported his theory. Stations with human crew had fewer casualties during emergencies. They had faster response times. They had better overall safety records, even though they also had more protocol violations. The humans were breaking rules, but the results were positive. On the evening of the third day, Velthar sent his report to the Galactic Safety Commission. He also sent copies to Admiral Kreshnal, who oversaw multi-species operations for the Galactic Union fleet. The response came faster than he expected. Less than 1 day later, he received a priority communication from Admiral Kreshnal. The Admiral's 3 eye stalks were rigid when he appeared on the view screen, which meant he was very serious or very concerned, possibly both. Commander Velthar, I have read your report. the Admiral said without any greeting. Multiple committees have also read your report. We need clarification on several points. Of course, Admiral. What do you need to know? The Admiral's eye stalks swiveled slightly. You state that Earth's normal environmental conditions match or exceed our emergency evacuation thresholds. You are certain about this? Yes, Admiral. I have verified the data multiple times. What we consider emergency conditions, humans consider normal weather variations. And humans evolved in these conditions? They find them comfortable? Velthar thought about how to answer. They do not always find them comfortable, but they consider them normal and manageable. Several crew members told me the drill conditions were mild compared to typical situations on Earth. 6 weeks after the drill incident, Commander Velthar received an official summons to Galactic Union headquarters. The message was formal and brief. He was to appear before a review panel to discuss his report and recommendations regarding human integration into multi-species operations. The journey to headquarters took 3 days. Velthar spent most of that time reviewing his notes and preparing to defend his conclusions. He knew that many officials would be skeptical. Changing established safety protocols was not something the Galactic Union did lightly. When he arrived at the massive headquarters station, he was escorted to a large hearing chamber. The room was circular, with seats arranged in rising tiers around a central floor where he would stand. It reminded him of ancient judgment halls from his planet's history. The panel consisted of 15 members. Admiral Kreshnal was there, his 3 eye stalks moving independently as he surveyed the room. Several members of the Safety Commission sat in a row, representing different species. And notably, there were 3 humans sitting to one side, observers from Earth's diplomatic corps. Admiral Kreshnal called the hearing to order. Commander Velthar, you are here to discuss your report on human environmental tolerances and behavioral patterns. This report has generated significant debate within multiple committees. Before we begin questions, do you wish to make an opening statement? Velthar stepped forward. Yes, Admiral, thank you. I want to be clear about what happened on Sanctuary 7 and what it means. During a standard emergency drill, 12 human crew members violated every safety protocol. They did this not out of carelessness or disrespect, but because their instincts and capabilities are fundamentally different from other species. What we call emergencies, they call normal conditions. What we call self-preservation, they call abandoning others. We cannot force humans to follow protocols designed for species from stable, safe worlds. We must either accept them as they are and adapt, or we must exclude them entirely. A Phobian commissioner rippled with agitation. Your report suggests humans routinely endanger themselves to help others. This is not logical behavior. How can we trust such unpredictable actions during real emergencies? Before Velthar could respond, one of the human observers stood. She was an older woman named Helen Brady, who served as Earth's senior liaison to the Safety Commission. May I address that question, Admiral? Admiral Kreshnal gestured approval. Helen walked to the center of the chamber. Commissioner, you call our behavior illogical, but it is actually deeply logical from a survival perspective. Earth is not a gentle planet. It changes rapidly. Storms appear with little warning. Temperatures shift dramatically. Resources are not always abundant or accessible. Our ancestors survived because they helped each other. A human alone on Earth has poor survival chances. Humans working together have excellent survival chances. We evolved to see the group's survival as our own survival. When one of us is in danger, all of us respond. This is not illogical. This is how we survived. The Phobian commissioner rippled again, considering this explanation. Admiral Kreshnal activated a holographic display. Commander Velthar's report included data from other stations and vessels with human crew. Let me share this with the full panel. The display showed statistics from 40 different locations throughout the Galactic Union. Each location had integrated human personnel within the past 2 years. The data was organized into clear columns: protocol violations, emergency response times, casualty rates, and overall safety ratings. The pattern was undeniable. Every location with human crew showed high numbers of protocol violations, but every location also showed lower casualty rates during emergencies, faster response times, and improved safety ratings overall. "As you can see," Velthar said, "humans break our rules regularly, but the outcomes are positive. They are not endangering themselves or others. They are actually making operations safer, just not in the way we expected." A Krell representative clicked his mandibles. "But how can we plan for personnel who are unpredictable? Safety requires knowing what crew members will do." Jake Morrison, who had been invited as a witness, stood up. "May I respond, Admiral?" Permission was granted. Jake walked forward, and Velthar noticed how differently he moved compared to the other species in the room. Humans had a casual confidence in their movements that came from being apex predators on their world. "We are not unpredictable. We are just using a different calculation than you are. When something goes wrong, most species think, 'How do I survive this?' Humans think, 'How do I fix this?' Different question, same goal. We all want everyone to stay alive." Another committee member spoke up. This was Glovesh, a senior member of the Safety Commission. "But this means humans are constantly at risk. They put themselves in danger to help others. This cannot be acceptable policy." "Are we really at risk, though?" Jake asked. During the drill on Sanctuary 7, Commander Velthar's monitors showed all humans had normal vital signs despite reduced oxygen and low temperatures. "We were not in danger. We were just in conditions that would be dangerous for you." Helen Brady added, "This is the core issue. The Galactic Union's safety standards are based on the weakest tolerances among member species. These standards work well for most species, but they are far too restrictive for humans. We can safely operate in much wider environmental ranges." Admiral Kreshenal's eye stalks focused on Commander Velthar. "Your report recommended what you call flexible response protocols. Explain exactly what you mean." Velthar activated his own display. "The current system has one set of protocols for all species. I propose a 2-tier system. Standard protocols remain in place for most crew members, but humans would have additional authorization during emergencies. They would be designated as emergency response specialists. When conditions exceed safe limits for other species, humans could respond using their superior environmental tolerances." "You want to give humans permission to ignore safety rules?" Glovesh asked, his tone skeptical. "I want to give humans appropriate rules," Velthar corrected. "Rules that acknowledge their capabilities rather than restricting them based on other species' limitations." The panel deliberated for hours. Velthar and the human observers were asked to wait in an adjoining chamber. They sat in silence for a long time. Finally, Jake spoke. "Do you think they will approve it, Commander?" Velthar's skin flickered with uncertainty. "I do not know. The Galactic Union moves slowly on policy changes, but the data is clear. Something must change." After what felt like an eternity, they were called back into the chamber. Admiral Kreshenal stood. "Commander Velthar, the panel has reached a decision. Your recommendations are approved, with modifications. Effective immediately, human crew members on multi-species stations and vessels will be designated as emergency response specialists. In addition to their primary duties, they will receive training on other species' environmental limitations. They will be authorized to use their judgment during emergencies, even if standard protocols would suggest different actions." Velthar felt his hearts skip in sequence. They had approved it. The Admiral continued, "However, this is a trial program. Sanctuary 7 and its human crew will serve as the test case. You will document all outcomes over the next 6 months. If the program succeeds, we will expand it throughout the Galactic Union." Jake smiled. "We won't let you down, Admiral. 3 months into the trial program, Sanctuary 7 faced a real emergency. A solar flare damaged the station's shield generators without warning. Radiation levels began climbing. The automated systems triggered evacuation protocols. Velthar watched from the command center as events unfolded. Most species rushed to the reinforced shelters as trained. But the humans moved differently. They had already discussed emergency plans during their specialized training. Jake led a team to engineering to manually stabilize the failing shields. The radiation levels there were already high enough to be dangerous for most species. Humans could tolerate higher exposure for short periods. Amy coordinated medical response, ensuring that crew members with radiation sensitivity got to protected areas first. Pete climbed into the exposed maintenance areas to reroute power systems. Lisa and Ben worked on the external repair panels where radiation levels were highest. Within 30 minutes, the shields were restored. The emergency was over, 0 casualties, minimal damage. The entire crisis had been resolved before it could become catastrophic. Velthar sent his report to Admiral Crescenal that same day. The Admiral's response was brief. Expand the program. Over the following months, human emergency response specialists were integrated into stations and vessels throughout the Galactic Union. The program was not without challenges. Some commanders struggled to trust human judgment. Some humans struggled to remember that other species had real limitations that seemed trivial from human perspective. But the results spoke for themselves. Casualty rates dropped. Emergency response improved. And slowly, the Galactic Union began to understand something important about the species from Earth. Humans did not understand peril the way other species did. But they did not need to. They had already survived a planet that tested them every single day. They had evolved to be tough, adaptable, and protective. Space, with all its dangers, was actually safer than the world they came from. Velthar watched Jake teaching a mixed-species emergency response class one day. The human was explaining how to assess structural damage during a hull breach. The other species listened with fascination and a little bit of fear. Later, Jake found Velthar in his office. "Everything okay, Commander? You look thoughtful." Velthar's skin showed a color pattern that indicated amused acceptance. "I was just thinking, Lieutenant Morrison, most species consider space dangerous, but humans seem to think space is relatively safe." Jake laughed. "Yeah, I guess that is about right. I mean, space doesn't have weather. No predators, no earthquakes or volcanoes. The temperature is controlled. The air is filtered. Honestly, it is pretty safe compared to Earth." Velthar shook his head, all 4 of his arms gesturing in wonder. "Your species is remarkable. You come from a world that actively tried to kill you, and you not only survived, you thrived. And now you are here, making space safer for the rest of us." "That is what we do," Jake said simply. "We adapt. We help. We survive." After Jake left, Velthar returned to his reports. He was drafting a proposal to expand human integration into search and rescue operations across the entire Galactic Union. After all, if you wanted someone who did not recognize impossible odds, who saw danger as just another problem to solve, who would risk themselves to save others without hesitation, who better than humans? The survival drill had proved that Deathworlders did not understand peril. But it also proved something more important. They did not need to understand it. They had already mastered it. And now, the galaxy was beginning to benefit from that mastery. The Admiral was quiet for a moment. His skin changed color slightly, which indicated he was processing difficult information. "Commander, this creates serious problems. We have been planning extensive integration of human personnel into Galactic Union operations. Joint missions, shared stations, mixed crews. If humans cannot recognize danger at levels that would kill other species, how can we ensure proper safety measures?" This was the question Velthar had been expecting. Admiral, I believe we have been looking at this incorrectly. We have been trying to make humans follow our safety standards, but perhaps we should instead use their capabilities. During the drill, humans violated every protocol, but not a single being was injured. Human actions prevented several potential injuries to other species. Their instinct to help others and their ability to function in extreme conditions could be advantages, not problems. You are suggesting we change fundamental safety protocols based on one species? The Admiral sounded doubtful. I am suggesting we acknowledge that one size does not fit all species, Velthar replied. Humans are from a Class 12 death world. They have capabilities we do not fully understand. Fighting against those capabilities seems inefficient. The Admiral's eye stalks moved in a pattern that suggested he was thinking carefully. I will convene a committee meeting to discuss your recommendations. In the meantime, maintain close observation of your human crew. Document everything. The communication ended. Velthar sat back and looked at the stars outside his window. Whatever happened next would change how the Galactic Union worked with humans. He just hoped it would be a change for the better. Maybe the rules need to change, Jake suggested. Maybe the rules were made for species that aren't from death worlds. Maybe you need different rules for us. Velthar looked at the human lieutenant. The idea was radical. The Galactic Union had standard safety protocols that applied to everyone. But Jake was right. Humans were different. They were so different that standard protocols did not make sense for them. I need to write a report about this, Velthar said. I need to send it to the Galactic Safety Commission. They need to know what happened here today. Are we in trouble? Pete asked. Velthar thought about the question. I honestly do not know. You violated every protocol, but you also kept everyone safe. I do not know how the commission will judge that. The meeting ended and the humans left. Velthar stayed in the conference room staring at the data displays. He had 3 days to write his report. 3 days to figure out how to explain to the entire Galactic Union that humans did not understand danger the way everyone else did. And more importantly, 3 days to figure out if that was actually a problem or if it was the solution to problems nobody had realized existed. Within minutes, all the non-human crew members emerged from their shelters, looking confused about why the drill had ended early. The humans emerged from wherever they had been, looking pleased with themselves. Jake found Velthar in the main corridor. Is everything okay, Commander? Did something go wrong with the drill? Velthar looked at the human lieutenant. His 3 hearts were beating in 3 different rhythms, a sign of extreme stress in his species. Yes, Lieutenant Morrison. Something went very wrong. I need all human personnel to report to the main conference room immediately. Sure thing, Commander, Jake said, still smiling. Give us 10 minutes. Pete needs to wash off. He got pretty dirty in those maintenance shafts. As Jake walked away, Velthar realized something that made his skin turn a lighter shade of silver. The humans did not even realize they had done anything wrong. They thought they had done well. This was going to be a very difficult conversation. They are playing cards in the recreation room. Commander? Velthar closed his eyes, though he had 4 of them, so it took a moment. Do they at least have their emergency equipment with them? I do not believe so, Commander. Of course they did not. Velthar looked at the clock. 30 minutes until the drill began. He pulled up the camera feeds from every section of the station. He positioned them on his screens so he could watch everything at once. The Krell were in position, their breathing masks already secured. The Phobians had moved to areas close to their shelters. Other species on the station, including the tall, thin Yarnell and the small, furry Tekken, were all prepared and waiting, and the humans were still playing cards. Velthar's 3 hearts beat in an anxious rhythm. He had a bad feeling about this drill. Something told him that the next 2 hours would change his understanding of humans forever. He just did not know how right he was.